ladies and gentlemen, Ilham, the other gentleman from the Ministry for Investment, I forgot his name, I'm sorry. Other attendees, good morning, Assalamualaikum, and Salam Sejahtera. My name is Ilham Habibie, and I'm the chairman of the National ICT Council. I'm going to tell you a few things about technology this year and what we need to look at in Indonesia. Also, what we do, we apply in various sectors in Indonesia pertaining to those technologies. There we are. So, yeah, this is basically what I'm talking about. I mentioned it already before. This is a short description of the visual description of the 𝐈𝐧𝐝𝐸𝐴𝐧𝐾𝐬𝐢𝐚, National ICT Council. It is a council that has been there since 2006 actually, and I'm the fourth chief executive. All my predecessors were ministers for ICT, and since 2014, and it was still in the old government of the previous president, so President Yudhoyono. He asked me to head the council, and since then I've been heading this council on the working level. The steering committee level, as you can see in this chart, is basically the chairman is the president himself. However, there is a daily chairman, because the president of course has many tasks to do, he doesn't have that much time. And so the daily chairman is the gentleman I report to, being the minister of the cabinet of the president. That's the minister for national planning. So within the last 9 years, so I've 9 years now at the helm of the 𝐈𝐧𝐝𝐸𝐴𝐧𝐾𝐬𝐢𝐚 team. I've reported to 5 different ministers, so you can see the dynamic of the government can be quite big, but we have had always good collaboration whoever the minister was actually. And if I talk a little bit about the team, different than the steering committee level, the working team is truly cross-sectoral. So we have representatives from government, of course, but then we have people like me that are actually from business or from civil society organizations, professional organizations, academia, and I think that truly gives everybody from our society, our country, our nation, the opportunity to give comments about what we should do in ICT regarding future direction, strategy, implementation, etc., etc. Because truly, ICT touches everybody's life in every country. So everybody has to say something, and I think that is embodied in the structure of 𝐈𝐧𝐝𝐸𝐴𝐧𝐾𝐬𝐢𝐚 on the working level. And by the way, I have the head of the office of the 𝐈𝐧𝐝𝐸𝐴𝐧𝐾𝐬𝐢𝐚. This is Dr. Gary Firmajan. Maybe Gary can stand up. He's basically doing the day-to-day work, and I have the honor to assist Gary from that moment. So basically, the tasks are as follows. Let's focus on the blue. So we've helped the government. Again, this is an advisory council. We don't make any decisions, but we give a lot of input for government so they know what is good, what they do from our perspective, of course, what we think they should improve, what thing they should add, etc., etc. We give them a lot of input, but again, we are not a decision-making government body. We are an advisory council. And so things we do is related to general policy. We resolve existing strategic issues. Of course, these are all proposals. Then we coordinate not only on the central government level, but we do have actually colleagues also on the provincial, even regency in the Indonesian language is called kabupaten, or on the independent cities and kota madya level. Some of them have established their own ICT council, funded by them, and with them we have a very good exchange of opinions and information, and I think it's very good. To give you an example, the Kabupaten of Sumedang, which is in West Java being the largest province in Indonesia with around about 15 million inhabitants. The Bupati has established 𝐈𝐧𝐝𝐸𝐴𝐧𝐾𝐬𝐢𝐚, basically Dewan TIK Daerah, or local national ICT council. And through the collaboration with 𝐈𝐧𝐝𝐸𝐴𝐧𝐾𝐬𝐢𝐚 and the Bupati, etc., they have now received multiple national awards regarding implementation of ICT in their kabupaten. It really works, but there needs to be a certain structure, a certain code of conduct, a certain working process, and then I think we can achieve many things together. The other thing that we do is, of course, we sometimes give them some improvement regarding particular implementation. It doesn't happen very often, but theoretically we should do this. And the last thing I want to mention here is, of course, we are also helping in terms of digital transformation of Indonesia, which is a multi-year process. We're going to hear this year, next year, in 10 years. Digital transformation is something that takes a long time because it's quite complex. And also, don't forget, and I'm going to talk about that later, digital transformation is so difficult because the technology changes all the time, right? I mean, every year you have something new, and then suddenly you say, oops, I have to do it a different way because there's something which is actually better or faster or cheaper, better quality. I mean, so yeah, things change all the time, but for the good and for the better, of course. Now, let's talk a bit more in detail. So I'm not going to talk about, well, this is the Manufacturing IT Council or conference. I'm not going to talk much about manufacturing, although I could, but I will not focus really on the technology related to ICT, information, communication, technology. So these are the trends. Well, this is for 4.0, which is basically the super connected world with lots of data available. So it's basically that part that makes it 4.0, that we can exploit the data that we accumulate all over the place. So everything is connected with one another. We can measure everything, everywhere, all the time. And the point is, what do we do with the data? So for that, you need special things. And these are the 4 things that we believe are important. First of all, it's about data itself. For that, you need connectivity. You need the computational power. Right now, we are about to enter an area where we have so-called quantum computing, which is going to be much faster than the computers we have right now. It's not there yet, but in a few years we will see it become reality. It's going to cost more money, but at the same time it will be much faster, so we're going to spend less money on computing time itself because it's so much faster. So of course we have to talk about data analytics and intelligence, which talks about artificial intelligence. Then we have the so-called human-machine interaction, and lastly we talk about the advanced engineering, call it anything to do with 3D printing or distributed manufacturing. Actually, that's something about manufacturing. Renewable energy is related to that because we want to have ICT, which needs a lot more energy. Just imagine you have one data center can have up to 50 megawatt per data center. It's just the data center. Yeah. Now I mentioned data centers. I know there's a national, a digital park in Badan, which is in process to be planned and implemented, and they are going to have 9 data centers there if the plan comes to a reality. And 9 times 50 megawatt is half a gigawatt only for a data center cluster in Batam. You can see the revolution. ICT needs a lot of energy, and of course we want that in a green way. We want green ICT, meaning to say the combination of renewable energy is not only charming when it comes to EV, electric vehicles, but also to ICT. So we're going to see more of that in the future, green ICT. These are the government initiatives that we see in Indonesia. I'm not going to go into detail, but just the headers. Tech hubs will accelerate the implementation of ICT in Indonesia. There's more and more investment in R&D. Yes, it's a big header since many years, and the reality is not so nice because, in fact, Indonesia does not spend a lot of money in R&D still, although we all know we have to. Right now, the figures are well below 1%. It's about between 0.2 and 0.4%. As a nation of our status being middle income, we should spend at least 1% of PDB, what is that in English? The national income, GDP, I'm sorry, GDP. But we don't do it. China spends about 2. World record holder is, guess what, is South Korea. That's why we see an enormous influx of new products, new technologies from South Korea, be it mobile phones, be it computers, be it cars now. All the EVs that are new in Indonesia that are very up and coming are Hyundai basically, But that is a result of years and years investment in R&D. We in Indonesia have to do the same thing, otherwise we're going to be falling so far behind. Skilling, digital skilling, is something very important, not only for our people that work in the office, the engineers, but also for people, the workforce, basically, that work in the factory. There's a large gap that needs to be filled. Then e-government is something that we, I think, have in our minds since many, many years. Yes, there are improvements. I'm going to talk more about that later. But there's also still a lot of things that needs to be finished and finalized. And lastly, also tax incentives. Without tax incentives, of course, the private sector particularly will not go the way government wants it to go, because it gives them some incentives that will hopefully lead them into the right direction. So key trends in digital adoption and usage. Well, again, a few headers here. In Indonesia, over the last years, we've seen a really rapid growth of e-commerce. I think at the moment, the e-commerce is almost as strong as the physical commerce. There's many things that people these days don't buy anymore. You can go to the shop, you see how malls have changed in the last years. People go to the mall usually only to eat or to buy some specific lifestyle products, but the day-to-day products like t-shirts or polo shirts, etc., you buy online these days, right? Or medicine. There's many alternatives to that. I don't want to talk more about that. I think all of us know this already. This is something already in place. Then something which is specific about Indonesia, it's mobile first. Meaning to say the entry point into the internet is specifically the mobile phone. 95% of Indonesians use the mobile phone as an entry point to the internet, and not the notebook, not the laptop, not the desktop, but it's the mobile phone. Of course, the mobile phone means not, it means a smartphone. You have to have a screen, you have to have an intelligent screen, you have to have a certain type of connection, but all of that, the price of the mobile phone, the price of the connectivity has fallen to the degree it is very affordable for almost every Indonesian here in our country. Then social media, don't need to talk about that. I think everybody knows what I mean, but Indonesians are always very consuming a lot of time updating their work and their interaction with anybody else, with friends and colleagues and partners through social media. Financial services is actually something that comes always under the head of inclusion. If you think about it, about half of our fellow Indonesians don't have bank accounts. They don't have access to that because they don't qualify for that. If you have a bank account, you have to have a permanent address, which some people don't really have. And you have to have a certain type of structure in your life. You have to have a steady income in some cases, or you have to pass the criteria that are basically mandated by the banking industry. And many don't qualify, and many are actually also living quite far away from those banking services, although there are banks in Indonesia that are very successful to bank even the unbanked as much as they can with the services. The largest microbank in the world is not Grameen Bank from Bangladesh, but it's BRI, Bank Rakyat Indonesia. It's the largest microbank in the world, and it's the only bank in the world that uses a satellite. Right? If you go to Ragunan here, which is in the south, there's a building that's owned by BRI. You have the control center for the satellite in that building. And guess what? It's not like in the movies, you find a big room with many screens. It's just one PC. One PC and two people, they steer the satellite, and they have another PC as a backup, and that's it. So, this is how far technology has come these days. And Indonesians can master to basically steer the satellite in a way that can operate it for many, many years, because I don't want to go into detail, but it is the skill of the operator that basically can prolong the life of the satellite for more than if you would leave it to just by itself. Yeah? Because the problem of the satellite is always the battery, and if you sway away from the orbit, then you have to put it back into orbit, and it's energy, and so you have to steer it all the time. But that's just a side note. But it is also IT. So the infrastructure in the sky is something we will see more in the future. So things like provided by Elon Musk, the so-called Starlink, which is now crucial in the war between Russia and Ukraine. is actually something that we will see in Indonesia as a commercial alternative to the infrastructure that is basically land-bound. So the many BTSs that we see in Indonesia, at some point in time will be having competition from the sky with many low Earth orbit satellites, either provided by Starlink, which is still in discussion, and I don't think Mr. Elon Musk is going to get the permission from the government, but I think there might be a chance for Indonesians to come into the place and provide that kind of a service, provided we can master technology and also do the financial part of it. So the digital commerce, I think I talked about it already a lot. I don't want to go into detail here, but digital commerce it has benefits, it has challenges, and I think this is something ongoing. It has been there last year, 2 years ago, it will be there this year, next year. It's something ongoing for many reasons. And the use cases are, as I said before, in online shopping. Big part that we have seen in the pandemic is basically the understanding of how to and how not to use online learning. We were all at some point in time not allowed to go to school, to office, etc. And of course, most of us have embraced the whatever you have to do through online means, basically online learning, online working, online participating in seminars like this, everything online. Now being back to normal, I mean in this room, yes, we still see ladies and gentlemen using the mask, which is good. However, it's not mandated anymore, so we have come to a stage where we can say we are managing COVID not as a pandemic, but as an endemic. So we live with it, yes. And we all get vaccinated, but at the same time, all of us have gone through this experience, so what we have experienced is an online we will continue in a hybrid way. So the future world is very much hybrid. So it's hybrid learning, hybrid communication, hybrid meetings. If I do meetings in my office, for whatever purposes, I always give the opportunity for people that cannot come to the meeting to be there online, and it really works. So participation is much better than before, because if you have to be there physically, there's no alternative to that. Of course, it's not so easy. Digital finance, I talked about this already. E-government, I talked about this already. Remote work, I talked about this already. So let's talk about, I jumped on a little bit. So this is something which will accompany us for many years to come. And artificial intelligence actually is not something high in the sky. It's not something to be there in a few years. It is already there. We just don't feel it. So why do you think if we Google and we look for information and suddenly come earlier to us, we get certain ads suddenly in our email, because the system actually intelligently knows what we need at what time, and so they provide information proactively. Whether we use it or not, it's up to us. But the system is already using artificial intelligence in order to understand the need of the consumer or the customer when the person needs it at that time. It's almost real time. It's amazing, but it's sometimes a bit annoying as well. But this is already AI. So AI is structured into many things, and we foresee that I'm writing here, taking over mundane, repetitive tasks. I mean, if there's things that are really trivial, and you don't really need a person to do this. It is actually very low added value. So why not let a machine take it over? Of course, the machine can do more and more and more, and I will talk more about this later. There's amazing things what AI can do in the form of a chatbot. But this is something that is basically complementing humans to focus on the tasks that truly can only be accomplished by humans, but to the repetitive, trivial, low added value tasks to do by a computer. This can be seen as automation, but automation in a very complex degree sometimes. So there are challenges to that, because AI is not without deficiencies, not without risks. I remember there was a case at Google. There were two females protesting about Google being too anti-feminist. And they were basically pointing to the fact that whenever you want to talk about AI, you have to have a committee that basically decides what the criteria. How do you design the AI? And they felt that in that panel, in that council of Google that was defining the characteristic of the AI, there were not enough females, and so there was some sort of an anti-feminism in the Google. I don't want to say whether it's true or not and how it looks like or not, but that really happened. and they left the company, and it became a big thing for Google. But you can see, in order to define AI in a fair way and an equal way, it's not easy. It's not a trivial thing. So the implementation, whenever it starts working, is maybe easier than the definition how to do it. You have to agree on a society scale, on a national scale. In fact, I foresee that sometime on a global scale, what is ethical, what is not ethical to do as an AI. So this is something we are, I think, have to watch. And this is a challenge, an ongoing challenge for AI. It's more about the definition. So it's not just a technical thing, but it's actually a very ethical. It has to do with how we perceive justice, how we perceive fairness, how we define it. Because once we put the system in place, then many of us they just believe, right? I mean, comes from the computer. It must be okay. Yeah. So this requires critical thinking. I know this is something everybody talks about, but critical thinking is not an easy thing to do. Because sometimes we don't have time, and we have group pressure, and if everybody talks the same, then we tend to believe what everybody says. So AI initiatives in Indonesia, I give you this, there's already quite a lot. If you think about how Indonesia handled COVID, how did we see the patterns in our country, where do we see clusters, how to basically deploy the vaccines, etc. All of that, we were using our application, what was it again? I forgot. The application that we had, the health application. Peduli Lindungi, exactly, yes. And Peduli Lindungi is maybe the application that is the most disseminated application in the whole of Indonesia. Every Indonesian, or almost every, has Peduli Lindungi, or care and protect. That would be the English translation. Right? Peduli is care, and Lindungi is protect. Care and protect. So basically, you have to put in your data in that, and in the high time of COVID, you have to scan in your whereabouts, and every mall, every office you enter, you have to basically scan yourself into the QR code. That is the most widely spread application, and the government used AI in order to know what to do using the data that was accumulated through Peduli Lindungi. That's one very famous use case in Indonesia where AI was already largely deployed. Then another case is basically the National Standardization Body, which has, this is SNI, it's an industry standard. They're using us AI in order for reading and writing equipment regarding the ID cards or KTP in Indonesian language. Then the Financial Service Authority uses it as well. And then in the industry, AI is used for instance, these are just examples. It's not the only thing, right, that we have in Indonesia, but it's for doing computer vision, for doing scanning regarding drones, etc., etc. There's a lot of use cases in Indonesia. So AI is not something, like I said before, pie in the sky. It's someday, sometime it will come. It's already there. You're already living in it day to day. So now I jump to something which is very, very recent. Just in November last year, November 2022, we saw the launch of something called ChatGPT. I think some of us, maybe all of us, have heard about this already. But what is it really? What most people see is this is something that potentially could disrupt Google. You have to just imagine, if you look for information, you don't go to Google anymore, but you go to this chatbot, and you ask a question, and you don't get a linear answer like a word on a website. You get something like an essay, almost, a small essay, where this chatbot gives you a straight answer like you ask a person, or a person that is educated. And you can ask more and more and more, and this essay and the analysis will be deeper, wider, and more precise. It's amazing and scary. So there are universities in the United States that have already put borders into place where they basically prevent students to use ChatGPT when they do the exams, because you really can't tell whether it's reading done by a computer or by yourself. But on the other hand, I just recently read an article in one English newspaper where a journalist was describing how he could imagine using ChatGPT to get a better, high-quality product, meaning a better analysis about something. So, as with most technologies, yes, there's some good, bad things that can happen. At the same time, there's some good things, but we cannot ignore it. We cannot say, oh, we don't want it, we have to ban it. It's difficult. It's really difficult. And I think in the end, we'll have not only delivered it, but we have to use it for the good and for the bad. And just, by the way, they have 100 million users just within 3 months. It's the fastest growing consumer application history. By the end of the year, it might have already a billion, we don't know, because everybody's going to try it. But what is it really? Well, this is basically a chatbot, and this is a few parameters. I don't want to go into detail here because we are not ICT people, but basically it's something that uses this methodology. And chatbots were there before, but it's a combination of chatbot and a better AI that made this possible. So you basically talk to this machine that talks back and gives the answer, not a one-line thing or just a word or a website, but they give you a big analysis, which is amazing. And basically what, oh, this is actually what I don't want to, how does it work? Oops, how do I go back? Okay. This is how it works. Oops. Okay, I stop here. This is how it works, but I don't want to go into detail actually. So another thing that is something we're going to continue in Indonesia in 2023, not only in Indonesia but in the world, is the Internet of Things. So Internet of Things means that everything, as I said before, is connected. But how? Through sensors, of course. Sensors and also computers that can work as sensors. So that can be something very simple or something complicated, but through that we'll basically have a hyper-connected world where we can use the data, as I said before, in order to feed the artificial intelligence machines, because there's more than one. Every artificial intelligence is specialized in something. They use special methods, but through that, we have a better understanding of our world. We'll hopefully also understand how to solve the many challenges and problems that we face better through higher quality and lower cost solutions. And for that, we need basically to look at some trends. I have 4 keywords here that I'd like to inform you about. One is the so-called digital twin, which is there actually already since many years in some industries, but now it's basically, you can say the whole world can be programmed as a digital twin. And of course that brings me already to the keyword, which is the metaverse. So that metaverse is potentially a digital twin. So if you, let's say you are a destination, tourist destination. Let's say you are Lombok, for instance. Yeah? So what could be done with Lombok, they could create a digital twin of Lombok in a metaverse. So the tourists that want to come to Lombok, they enter the metaverse first from wherever they are, and they can not only book, but they can experience the trip before they even go there and make the trip a better trip. Because they know what to do, what not to do, where to eat, and what not to. It's really amazing what you can do in the metaverse. So it's a simulation of the real world that can be exploited for your personal or group benefit. Yeah? So you can save time and get a better result. So that is basically a useful application of the metaverse for things like tourism. There are other uses, of course, the gaming industry, etc. But I wanted to give you an example where you can see a real benefit for people or for areas that would use the enterprise metaverse for the business sector. IT has, of course, to adhere to security standards. Then we'll see something which is not easy, the Internet of healthcare things. You have to imagine these days if you go to a hospital, you want to check in, you come with your data sometimes, the hospital says, oh no, we don't want the data, we have to check you again. So basically it is a way for them to basically, it's a part of the business model. At the same time, it's not very convenient for the consumer because you have multiple expenses for the same thing. But in the future, what is foreseeable, there will have to be more sharing of data between healthcare providers, and for that you need this Internet of Healthcare Things, so a connected ecosystem of healthcare data that will be there for the benefit of the patients. And governance and regulation in the IT space is something which is, of course, something that has to be enforced. Electronic traffic law, which has come into place, I think, only in September last year, if I'm not mistaken. But we still wait for the bylaws, basically for the 𝐄𝐝𝐢𝐭𝐢𝐨𝐧 in Indonesia. That is not in place there, but I think we will have to work on this year and next year as well. So blockchain is something, it's basically the internet of value. So I think most of us have heard about this, and this is already there. I mean, this is basically you share the ledger. There's no third party between, if there's a transaction, go direct, and it is assured by information that is in an anonymous way delivered to the parties that this is a legal transaction, it's a clean transaction, it's as agreed transaction. So it basically makes things more transparent. At the same time, it saves costs and it saves time. So in Indonesia, we actually use this already a lot in the financial industries, as you can see in the capital market, in the banking industry, insurance industry, public sector. There's a lot of things we do there already. I don't want to go into detail because but it's something widely used already. And some cases here, for instance, one of the first cases where we use blockchain in the government is basically when we do our tax application every year. This online tax application, the DGP, Directorat General of Pajak. Online is something that has used blockchain for online tax since 2018. So for that, basically, it is made sure that the information that we provide to the Directorate of Tax is handled in a confidential way, in a safe way, and basically by that the processing of the tax, and I'm talking about can be our personal tax, and the company tax is done in a very professional, quite fast and efficient way. Other applications are basically used when it comes to using, but this is still, I think, a draft, it's not there yet, but online procurement in the government side is supposedly using more and more blockchain technology in order to prevent and avoid corruption as much as possible. Well, this is the big picture now, the cyberspace in Indonesia. You see that there is basically infrastructure on land, and there's something in the sky, which is basically the satellites I talked about before. We have a lot of participants in there. You can see that we have actually more mobile users or smartphone users than we have population. I mean, we have 275 million Indonesians and we have 350 million smartphone users. Of course, some of us have more than one. That's the answer. Maybe some of you might be wondering how can it be. And we do have a lot of laptop users as well, but as you can see, this is maybe only 1/7 of the number of smartphone users. It's really small compared to that. And lately we have also a lot of users that are using the so-called smart TV. I mean, the TVs right now, they are also they have connectivity. You can use it as a screen in order to enter to the internet. And there's also another way, and with the digital TV now, basically being the only way to do free-to-air in Java. Non-Java is not there yet, but in Java you have, it's an absolute must. The proliferation of smart TV will be driven more and more by the fact that we go digital, even when it comes to free-to-air. There are a lot of sectors that are here mentioned as so-called, these are crucial sectors, the IIVs, vital sectors, and you can read this as health, ICT, etc. So these sectors need to be driven. On the left-hand side, you see the cyber security incident response team. There are some mechanisms in place for that. So all of that can show you the complexity of that we have. If we talk about ICT in Indonesia, there's the infrastructure, there's the security, there are sectors that are seen as being crucial, there's the users. I mentioned here all the ministries, the agencies, and this is only the government side, and of course there's the public, the general public, our society use it. It's really complex. It's a very complex system, and there are threats, so we have to be careful to protect our country from cyber attacks. I remember a few years back, Indonesia was actually the #1 country in the world for cybercrime, but not because it happened in Indonesia, but the cyber criminals, if I may say that, they came from outside, from country X, Hawaii, I don't want to mention countries now, but they were using Indonesia as a base to do whatever criminal they were doing in another country. So basically it's like a hub and spoke system. So they come from country X, go to Indonesia, and it looks like it comes to Indonesia and go to another country. So, but that has been now resolved. I think cybersecurity has improved quite a lot. And so luckily, we have now a much safer country when it comes to cybersecurity, but still, it is an issue for every country. Okay, well, I think that's it, what I have to say this morning. Some little summary here. So we have to be aware about the technological leaps that come every now and then. One I've mentioned in my presentation before, which is the ChatGPT application. It's something that most of us have not tried yet, I think, but I would recommend you to try it because it's quite amazing. And I think personally it will have a large impact on our world, maybe even disrupt Google. So then we have to look at ICT as a great potential and power to help us when it comes to economic processes. And right now, the whole world is talking about is, first is the recovery from COVID. Second is how to deal with the global food and energy crisis that has been basically started with the war between Ukraine and Russia. Indonesia is not that impacted like other countries because we are relatively safe when it comes to energy and food. However, also in Indonesia we see increasing inflation and there's pressure on some industries that lead to dismissing people from factories. So that it's not without pressure, but it's not as bad as in other countries. But ICT is always seen as part of the solution rather than the problem to deal with those economic crises. Then a major challenge, and I cannot underline it enough, is basically the need for national digital talent. If I look around in companies that I know, my own company, then basically I see in certain skills we cannot get in Indonesia. Not in the amount and maybe not in the quality and the seniority that we need in Indonesia. So we have to go outside. It happens in other countries like India, for instance. There's a lot of things we can't find in Indonesia. Yes, we have a lot of young, fresh graduates, but they lack the skill set, they lack the experience, they lack the flight hours, they lack the seniority. So basically, that is something we have to work on. We have to improve the curriculum of our schools and universities. We have to enhance the collaboration between those educational institutions and the industry, because there's no use of having a good curriculum and a good university without the affirmation of the industry that that curriculum is really useful and those people that graduate from those schools can find a real good job at those industries. So that's very important. I like to emphasize that. Then also the way we work, the collaboration between parties in the digital age is something that is happening, I wouldn't say egalitarian, but it happens really immediately person to person. Yeah. So the openness, we need open system, open source, open AI, open cloud or whatever. There's open government. There's so many things which adhere to this openness standard. It doesn't mean it's completely open, but because you need to, of course, also make sure that it's still safe. You have to allow access to as much people as needed, but with certain criteria, of course, and certain protection in place. But the sense of collaboration between parties is a different one in the digital age. And that's something I think we have to live with, and we have to create our culture based on that. But I'm quite positive about that. Indonesians are known to be collaborative in nature. We have this national principle called gotong royong. I think most Indonesians, all of us know what it means. And in the digital age is something I think is very useful to adhere to that. Then the ethical framework when it comes to AI or also using ChatGPT is something which is something not to be belittled. It's not easy, but it's very important to deal with this, because only if we overcome that challenge, we can truly put those technologies in place for the good and the better of our society and people. And lastly, there needs to be a redesign of industrial zones. I mean to say you have to incorporate ICT from the very beginning of our industrial strategy, including creating industrial zones where you can see companies and factories moving and possible for our country. I think that's about it. And as a last slide, a little advertisement. This is basically our products. So please visit our website, and you can download our products there for free, of course. And hopefully it's useful for all of you. And if you have any comment or any feedback, we'd be more than happy to receive your input and be in communication with you. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Terima kasih atas perhatian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Mr. Ilham Akbar Habibie, thank you for your presentation. Please stay on the stage. We would like to give you a token of appreciation. To give a token of appreciation, I invite Mr. Rishi, CEO 𝐄𝐲_Media Concept Private Limited, to the stage.